Oh, that's right. I think she said she wasn't, okay, so we have everybody who's coming. Okay, so I'll call the meeting to order exactly at 5:30 PM. So the second item is public comment. Do we have anyone online?
We have quite a few people on, but I think these are our interviewees and no public comment at this time.
Okay. Got it. Yeah, I hadn't realized. Yeah, so the competition might be able to see their interviewees, but I guess we'll. It's a public meeting anyway, so anybody could join us if they wanted to. So that's perfect. So tonight we're gonna do a still intro. So we're gonna do interview. We invited 3 commissioning agents to the of the 5. We wanted to interview them and probably ask them a few questions. So it's a pretty informal process. I don't think we have any questions planned, but I assume they'll kind of rise to us as we go through it. Adam, anything you want to add?
The only thing I'd say is twofold. One, in addition to the interviewees, we have Jeff and Justin with Tecton, Craig Raza with Cola Ronan here as well to observe and
Yep.
provide insight if the committee wants to reach out to them. So they've been kind enough to join. And then the other element is we have on the agenda discussion and potential recommendation. If whatever reason the committee's not comfortable, this decision could be made at the next meeting. Obviously, if you guys are ready, you've been a great group about pulling the trigger and moving on and keeping things going. So that's been great. But just to give you an insight as to the overall schedule, if there's an impasse or something of that nature and we need to go to the next meeting, that it has been accounted for if needed.
Okay, yeah, that could happen. We may want to look at the numbers and I think as you indicated that this is it's an RFP, so we can negotiate the scopes and the fees with the selected firms if we choose to. Okay. Let's see. Any other questions or comments from the building committee before we start? Hearing none, I guess we're going to first up in order. We're going to do BVH, Horizon Engineering, and Van Zelm. So BVH is first. So Raquel,
okay, so from BVH, I see John.
Raise your hand if you're on
John, could you just let me know who else is on your team? And I'll also move them over.
Oh, there we go. Sorry. I had to join as a panelist first. So Adam Gower is also on our team.
Okay. He should be coming over now.
Good evening, everybody.
Evening.
Nice, John, I see you're able to do your video.
Yep.
So wanted to introduce myself. I'm Adam Gower from BVH Integrated Services, Associate Vice President and Commissioning Project Manager.
And I'm John Hanel, Director of Building Envelope Services for BVH Integrated Services.
Great.
So,
yeah.
What was that?
So you just be you two guys. I just want to make sure there's.
Yeah, it's just us two.
Well, you're more than enough. I just want to make sure we got everybody on. So we've yep. So I don't know if you want to. We got a half an hour. We're pretty informal. So we may interrupt you with questions during your presentation. So, if we cut into it, we'll add you more time. We've allocated 45 minutes total. So, if you want to go from the start, unless you had some questions about the format or anything,
No questions. No
Yep.
questions. I do have a PowerPoint presentation we're going to go through here. Quite a few slides, but we're not going to stay on the slides too long. I am able to distribute the presentation to everybody after the interview. Whoever was on the email distribution list for this interview, and could be further distributed from there as you need.
Perfect. Yeah, appreciate that. Okay, you guys are up.
So BVH has been doing commissioning since the inception, since 1990. We've got a lot of power and resources in our company that we can tap into as needed. If a design question comes about, and our design side could help to offer some recommendations as well. These are a list of some of our services: building envelope, structural, civil, MEP technology for the design side. Some of the commissioning assets in our department, certifications and licenses, kind of show our capabilities and show some of our strengths. So we've got controls, all facets of experience levels, balancers, ex-balancers, ex-control people, engineers. I came from the design side and moved into commissioning. But previous to BVH, I worked on the contracting side. This here is our comprehensive list of integrated services. I won't go through those, but I'll keep them in the PowerPoint just so everybody can refer back to as needed. We'll talk more about some of our envelope services later in more detail as far as capabilities on that front. Some representative clients to show our experience and some of the clients that have come back, repeat clients, repeat business that we like and pride ourselves on. One of our biggest clients currently is Yale New Haven Health Network, where they're #1 commissioning firm. I don't believe they even use anybody else at this time. We have also Columbia University is a large client for us as well. Some relevant experiences are K-12 Connecticut schools we've done commissioning on. Something I like to highlight over here is we're on our third term for our 3-year contract for commissioning Massachusetts School Building Authority. They set the fees for their schools based on square footage. So they try to evenly distribute through their pool of commission providers that are on contract. Just more of a list of schools we've commissioned in the state of Connecticut. Some schools here, we've done the Connecticut High Performance. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on these, and I'm flying through them because I know you see a lot of listed on our proposal already. Try to get into project-specific items here. Here's the project team that we proposed on using for this project. Lindsay Huff, myself, John, Alex, and Alona. There are 2 others that are not shown here that are also in the proposal, though. Their resumes, that is Keith Barton and Mike Tartaglia. So Alona's role would be to help with the peer review. And Keith Barton is HVAC peer review help, and Mike Tartaglia would be the plumbing peer review help. So we combine commissioning, design review comments, and senior designers together into one, and that's the review process from BVH that we propose for this. Design reviews per lead, for example, are done by commissioning providers or commissioning personnel only. it's as described, but we find it beneficial to have senior level designers with their experience and knowledge base on codes and things to be able to review the plans and specs as well. I think owners really find that high value in that as well. Example of our scope of work and how it's going to flow. So, and how different players will be involved. From our side of it, Lindsay's going to help in the upfront with the peer review and the envelope coordination. He would also assist with design phase services, spec building for the commissioning spec, and review of the basis of design. And here you can see below Lindsay is myself, and to each side is the peer review team and John Hanel, specializing in the envelope. And then Alex Torpy will be helping me on the MEP side, as well as envelope. So then it comes down, and this flow chart kind of just shows you some of the tasks that we will be doing between Alex and I. Commissioning plan, follows the scope of services, commissioning schedule, things are all in there in a sequential fashion, and schedule is very important in this day and age. We're finding time gets crunched, and it's not a lot of time left for the controls person or ourselves. So we try to draw attention to that in the early stages. Shop drawing reviews, tab and controls, some of the most important ones that we review. We'll have, again, our specialist help in the reviews of those. I've done controls work in my previous life as well. So mock-ups I have listed here. I can speak to that real quick. The sampling approach on this project for terminal equipment, we proposed 20%. We think that we ought to set that bar in the beginning for these mock-ups and set a level of confidence that everybody agrees upon, and then they can carry that out for the rest of the terminal equipment. So with doing a mock-up for all the systems that are being sampled helps to ensure that things that are we're not gonna have our eyes on, that we have some kind of level of surety that it's going to be installed all the same. So experience with projects, with project systems and some of the goals we saw in the ed specs. Geothermal systems, we have quite a bit of experience with. On the design side, I was involved with the St. Louis University project where that was geothermal. Currently, I'm working on the largest net zero school in Massachusetts, which has geothermal. I will draw experience from that for your project. And also Smith College just finished commissioning their new library not too long ago, but the intent was to have all the equipment there capable of heating with low temperature hot water from a future geothermal plant. Definitely see the importance of the installation review that's described in the RFP for the geothermal as far as reviewing the grouting and bedding and piping. The grouting is very important for thermal conductivity, for your performance in delta T's, as well as getting air out of the system so that you have the right pitches on your piping. We don't want to trap air in the well field. We saw the potential for photovoltaics on this project as well. And we have extensive experience testing those solar panels as well. Building automation systems, we saw automated logic in Allerton listed. We're aware of Allerton being a hand high and have experience at hand high as well. But We worked with Allerton quite a bit. We did a few schools in Manchester with Allerton, and we also have a few projects at Connecticut Children's Medical Center for which they are the control people for. So we do have good experience with their system. And as far as automated logic, I've worked on that system extensively, and Alex Torpy, who's on the team for this project, just came from Automated Logic a little over a year ago. So he was with them for quite a few years before coming to BVH. So he's got a lot of experience with Automated Logic. Lighting controls and sensors are going to be tested part of this project. And we have meters to be able to test light levels if there's questionable areas at, code required light levels at the desks. And we do note that you potentially have light shelves in the design. So we may need to use that meter in different areas of the classrooms. Heating with radiant floors, saw that in there as well for this project as a goal for the design. We like to see those early on just to see that the devices are installed per design before it's covered up with concrete and the right sensors are in there that are. But then later in the design, testing using our infrared camera, we found it useful to see if there's any issues with flow or valving associated with the different zones for the radiant floors. So acoustics was a concern in ed spec, part of your goals. So we'll catch those concerns early on in the peer review from our standpoint. And for the remainder of the project, we'll keep that in our forefront. So we would recommend not having fans in the classroom above the ceiling, fan cool units or different terminal equipment, as well as VRF mixing boxes of refrigerant, those outside of the classrooms. We've had issues in the past when they are designed to be in the ceiling of classrooms where they make more noise than you think. And then measurement and verification, the monthly site work and EUI verification, we saw your goal of less than 25. And, for a typical K through 12 school, I think it's around 50 EUI is your typical. So that's a nice goal. We have, like I said, the Belmont School is a net zero. We have other net zero schools we've commissioned in the past. But this measurement and verification scope for this project is very similar to the 72-hour testing we do for every Columbia University project, as well as monitor-based commissioning, where you'll review the systems quarterly, or ongoing commissioning, for which we do for all the Yale New Haven Health projects. And we would review trends and alarms for the entire duration of the warranty period. That's our scope for that one. So we're very familiar with pulling trends and reviewing performance and alarms. So we understand that it's going to be site work as well as office work monthly there for that. Just wanted to highlight design phase services. I'm not going to go over these. They're in our proposal as well, but I wanted to highlight for the building envelope, we recommend doing their first design review no later than 100% DD. Earlier the better, we feel, from our experience. Construction phase services. Construction site visits. Usually they're heavier on the envelope in the beginning. And John comes in and helps provide his expertise. And then mock-up reviews, I already highlighted those and the importance of those, especially when you have sampling. So we'll be looking to see that mock-ups are implemented in the commissioning plan that's talked about at the kickoff, that's in the commissioning schedule, and everybody understands the expectations for that.
Yeah, and Adam, if I can jump in here, just on those site visits for construction, like Adam said, we come in, envelope sort of starts first because that's usually what's out of the ground more. And then as things get going, we're working together between envelope and MEP commissioning. We're looking at what's coming up, what piping is in, what ductwork is in, so that we can coordinate those site visits. There might be a question there, well, why can't one guy know everything instead of sort of splitting up into these two specialties, building envelope and then the MEP commissioning? And certainly firms do that for sure. But when it comes to those construction site visits, there's so much information to take in. There's so much to absorb out of that building. We find that if we have our specialties and we focus on those, we're working together so that we're coordinating with each other to get to the sites at the right time. But being able to focus on specific things, specific areas of expertise makes a big difference on the construction site visits, so that we can catch more rather than trying to catch it all in just one person. So we really at BVH try to coordinate that so that our expertise is used to best benefit the client.
Some of our typical functional testing breakdown, just wanted to speak to the one I have bold here. In particular, MEP testing to start with the plant level and then work our way down to the air handling equipment and down to the lower level equipment. We like to do that sequentially. So, you've got the temperatures and flows from the plant going to this equipment before you test that lower level equipment. I'll highlight here, tracking of issues will be done with our web-based portal. It's quite user-friendly, and we have just upgraded that recently. So occupancy and warranty phase. I already spoke to the measurement and verification efforts for this project, but we definitely see the value in the warranty review. About 10 months into the 12-month warranty period, assuming that it's 12 months. If it's something else, it's going to be performed a couple months before the warranty is up. So that way, if we find some issues, there's time for them to be corrected, re-verified prior to the warranty expiring. So for a warranty review, we in the morning would like to typically we'll interview the principal and the facilities head of facilities and discuss and question any issues they've been having, recurring issues, nuisance alarms. And after that meeting, we'll spend the rest of the day viewing system performances, trends, alarms, and we could narrow in on investigating any particular issues that came out of the meeting. And John.
So at this point, we'll talk a little bit about the building envelope as it relates to the scope on this project. So again, Adam laid out the big picture of our organization chart, and I'll talk a little bit about building envelope scope at this point. Next slide, Adam. So one of those things that I wanted to mention before we get into the scope particular is that our envelope capabilities is not just me, but we have an envelope team that does a lot of testing on the building envelope. And that testing does two things for us. One is it's their services that we can bring to any commissioning project if they're needed, whether it's infrared imaging or air and water testing on curtain walls or windows or storefronts, pressurized fog testing. We use that a lot for quality assurance of the air barrier of the envelope during construction, which is really important in schools that have a net zero goal or they want to be prepared for net zero. We want to make a tight envelope, an efficient envelope. We want that all to be as effective as possible because it lowers the overall load, the heating and cooling load of the building if your envelope is efficient, has great R value and also has excellent air tightness. So we use all these testing methodologies. We have those in-house. Like I said, can be applied to any one commissioning project, but more importantly, because myself and my crews are testing every day, it makes us better at our plan reviews, and we're better at our inspections, because I can't look at anything without thinking to myself, how would that perform on a water test? How would that perform on an air leakage test? I just can't do it anymore, because I've tested so many things. It really informs how we look at things in both the design and also on site as things are being installed. So that's a big part of our operation on the building envelope, is just that experience through testing. Next slide. Oh, sorry, Adam, you were going to say something on that one. I jumped ahead.
Yes, we had them both here, infrared imaging. If we were selected for this project, we wanted to throw out there that we would perform a whole building infrared scan of the envelope and a report. That's not something that's in our proposal that I just wanted to say today.
All right, great. So in the design phase, the envelope commissioning is going to do three primary things. One is we'll assist with the envelope or the language in the commissioning specification, which goes into the project documents. We'll also be assisting with creating the commissioning plan. So everything building envelope related, we'll get into that commissioning plan as well. And most importantly, we're going to be performing the peer reviews of the envelope design. So we've got 2 reviews plus a back check. And like we mentioned earlier, somewhere in the middle of DD, between 50% and 100% DD, that'll be our first review. That's where the envelope details have progressed far enough that we can look at them and then we can comment on them. And really, this is a huge opportunity up front to get that envelope right. Adam, next slide. So for example, on this image, this is a dorm building that we did a few years back. And here is an image from an envelope review. And what we're looking at here is the cross-hatched areas, everything that's insulation. So we have insulation coming up the wall and insulation coming across the roof. But where the wall and the roof come together, there's actually a significant gap there that's created by the roof deck material, which is just a huge piece of corrugated metal. And so this is a big catch. If you have a building in design that ultimately has this large gap in both the insulation barrier or the thermal barrier, and also it's a huge opening for air leakage. So that design review process for the envelope is really critical in catching these things and getting them straightened out long before construction.
Yeah, one project I remember working on with John, thought it was great that the architect, so we did 3 schools in one particular town with the same architect. And with the first school, the architect was so happy with the peer review from John and us that before he finished the design, even for us to review on the next school, they called John to help sort out some of these details before it even was out for our peer review.
All right, next slide. Thanks. So then in the construction phase, we'll be doing an envelope kickoff meeting, which is a really critical opening to the construction phase. It's a time where we sit down with all the contractor and the subcontractors that are involved in the envelope, and we talk about the details in terms of sequencing them and which details are going to be challenging. And we lay all of that out in that kickoff meeting. At about the same time and kind of concurrent with that, we'll be doing submittal review and shop drawing review to look at what the contractors are submitting and planning to build, and how does that tie back and relate back to the envelope design. And of course, there'll be site reviews, site inspections, and inspections of any of the testing that's going to happen on the envelope. We'll be present for that testing to see the outcome of the testing and make sure the testing is being done properly. The images you see over here on this slide actually relate to that project that Adam mentioned, which is the Smith College Library, which had that, it's a very sophisticated project. What you don't see in this overview image of Smith College is all the envelope that's actually below grade. It's underground. So this building had underground library areas that were completely buried. And so the waterproofing that had to be inspected, and the image on the upper left is a vector mapping that had to be done through multiple stages of these underground sections to make sure that the waterproofing was going to be flawless and in preparation long term. And Adam and I worked together on that, again, back and forth. I'd go out to do inspections for envelope and let him know where things were at in terms of the MEP progress, and vice versa. He was letting me know that the next vector map was going to be coming up soon for building envelope. So we work together, even though we have our separate specialties, we're informing each other as we go back and forth at the project.
Right, and if I see something where later in the project, envelope related of concern, we note it as well. We are trained on envelope commissioning as well. So Alex and I will help there. And if there's something more in depth that we can't resolve, we will definitely draw resources and run it by John and others as needed. Are you good with this slide, John?
Yeah, I'm good with this one. Next slide.
So why BVH? We're getting down here on time. I'm not sure exactly when we actually started, but
We're at about 25 minutes.
okay, great. Thank you. So like I discussed earlier on a bit, the difference between peer review and design review, and our approach for this project would be peer review, a combination of commissioning review and senior design level reviews. Something that we believe differentiates ourselves is our experience and specialization of our staff. We can accommodate any project schedule with regards to the quantity of our staff. Our commissioning providers are capable to do air and water balancing and troubleshooting. Same as we talked about the envelope testing and troubleshooting. So, the envelope providers and team, that's all they do on a day in, day out basis. It's not commissioning MEP commission providers that dabble in envelope. And same on our front on MEP side. We previously did envelope commissioning in-house, so we have experience there, but we only do commissioning primarily every day. We're not designers that dabble in commissioning, as some firms may do. Another aspect why BVH is catch items early and verify corrected. The earlier, the better, hence the mock-ups as well. So we will be managing and directing every aspect of the commissioning process, be clear and transparent, work as a team with the design and the contractors. We do treat these projects like they're our own house to see that things are installed per design and functioning. Even manufacturers' recommendations and installation standards, which you may not see in the design drawings and specifications, but we do hunt those down in order to do our verification and testing. Last but not least, we have an extensive inventory of equipment for testing and verification. We talked about the IR, saw some pictures of envelope testing capabilities, but light meters, sound meters, you name it, we have a extensive inventory for that. I think that's about all I have. John, did you have anything else?
No, I just, the only other thing was, like you mentioned, Belmont High School is one of the projects that we've done commissioning on, both MEP and building envelope in terms of a net zero school. And also, we have experience with Mansfield Elementary. That's one, Adam, you and I have worked on with testing at Mansfield Elementary and Buckley Elementary Schools. Both are going towards the net zero or trying to achieve net zero as well.
Right, and just like to highlight as well, you reminded me that on the Belmont project, the owner found it beneficial to also hire us to do the envelope testing after we were already hired for the MEP and envelope commissioning.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it for me.
Thank you, and wondered if you had questions for us.
I'll go.
Yep, go ahead, Woody. You're up.
Okay. I was curious, how many geosystems, I'm kind of responsible for making sure that we install a functional and efficient geosystem. I did that with our library just recently. Met Alona before and worked with her a bit. How many geosystems have you commissioned, and also I think how many have you designed, and how many certified geo designers are on the staff in design?
I do not have those numbers readily available to me, but I can get back to you on that. But so about a year ago, we merged with Salas O'Brien, and they have one of the companies under the same umbrella is a big designer of geothermal systems throughout the country. They are actually doing the design of the geothermal plant at Smith College. We're also helping to get information for them on, besides already commissioning the new library and some other buildings on campus. But they are actively designing these around the country. So I can get the number to you. And as far as how many geo commissioning projects, and then designers, I'm just making notes. I can get back to you with that answer.
Thank you. That'd be great. I also, in looking over the comparison in costing between you and our other two firms, the biggest discrepancy, and I don't mean it as a criticism, but the biggest difference would be in measurement and verification and monthly data gathering, where your number in the spreadsheet was dramatically over others. Can you take a moment to maybe explain that to us? And you have it's currently in occupancy and operation, so it seems like it's post-construction. But I just wanted a more thorough review of that number, because it represents almost $35,000.
Sure. So for that item, it has us reviewing performance, reviewing the schedule and hours of operation for the equipment, as well as taking the data from the meters. So it's going to be a monthly site visit. May not be a full day on site to review performances, gather the information, extract the trends, and then come back and write a report and do that 12 times.
So I'm sorry.
We're doing that monthly for the year.
So is it basically for the purpose of the report, or is this are these measurements being made to perhaps improve functionality or see where efficiency can be gained?
Definitely, yes. Right. So it was listed in the commissioning RFP to verify the performance. So, right. So we'll be looking at the trends. Well, actively, we can see things happen in real time, or we can review the trends to see how things were happening. In particular, so I've got a story for you. We did this for our community college in Connecticut. We did during the warranty review, actually, we caught it. We didn't do measurement and verification, but during the warranty review, reviewing the trends, we noticed high gas consumption compared to the energy model. And we drilled down deeper to find the root cause. The building facilities staff had overridden the snow melt on all the time and enabled the boilers to be able to come on all the time as well. So they were trying to melt snow all year round and just gas there. So that was one thing we found from that aspect. But so reviewing performance, when we're there doing our site visits for this, we'll look at the final product of, say, an air handling unit. You've got your static pressure from the fan, airflow, temperature, humidity. Outside air is very important nowadays. So those are things we'll look for performance on an air handling unit level, as an example, just to make sure that these energy meters are giving you the EUI calculation that you desire, and that they're good information. You know, you calculate the EUI off of some bad data, it's pointless.
Thank you. Hi, Stell.
Are you all set, Woody? I might have a
Yes.
question. You good?
Thank you, Graham.
Okay, thanks, Woody. Nice job on the presentation, gentlemen. Question for you, in terms of the mix of site visits, I know Alex and Adam are kind of sharing some duties. What percentage of time would be on site? Would Alex be versus Adams, et cetera?
We do not know that at this time. It's case by case scenario. You know, we both do live far from the school, so I could approximate, but I don't know. I plan on being on site quite a bit.
So you live nearby or you live far? I'm sorry, where do you live?
I live in Eastern Connecticut,
Okay,
Hebron to be exact.
okay, got it. It's a nice community, so. Okay, so, yeah, as Woody said, so the number of site visits, I noticed, I think you listed your site visits as a certain number of visits in your scope. But you mentioned like doing 12 site visits post occupancy, so is that, how fixed is that number of site visits you had, or is there more visits than you carried?
Yeah, so we're not going to be exact on that. So whatever we listed for construction site visits, we could do some more if need be.
So, I mean, is your marathon? Yeah. So your construction, because I think you had 12 site visits in construction. Is that so measurement and verification would be in addition to the construction visits, or would those be counted in the site visits?
No, that's not counted. That's separate. Yes.
Okay. Well, yeah, okay. So you're due.
Yeah.
Got it.
And again, any site visit that we're reviewing performance on those monthly ones and occupancy, if we see an issue, we're going to post it to our web-based commission portal and track that item and then re-verify that it's corrected. That goes for anything from the start of site visits, when we start posting to the portal, all the way into this measurement and verification, all the way down to the warranty review.
Got it. So, so we recently completed a geothermal system, so, which had some bumps, which I'm told sometimes takes a little longer to work out, than traditional systems, because there's multiple things interacting. I mean, what would you say the biggest issues on, getting a geothermal system up and running, in your experience?
Having the right grout, some of the pitch of the horizontal piping, making sure there's means of getting air out of the system. And sometimes depending on the type of design, seeing that you have the right flow to the even flow throughout the field. Sometimes we'll see balancing valves or circuit setters out in the manholes.
Okay, and I think you're working on the 2 net zero schools with Taisu's doing up in Manchester and Mansfield, I believe.
Yes,
So
On
are
the
the
envelope.
Yeah.
That's on the envelope side, yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's right.
just offhand, how many sacrifices or how difficult was to get to net zero on those buildings?
Well, Mansfield, it's still, as Adam knows, it's still a work in progress. We're still working on it. Net zero is, it's never as easy, in my opinion. It's never as easy as it seems at the beginning. At the beginning, it's like, okay, just build a nice envelope and put some solar panels on it, and we're there. And I think that kind of concept comes a little bit out of the housing industry, because housing, to offset a house with some solar panels and get it to net zero is relatively easy. But as soon as you start talking more and more sophisticated systems and tying them all together, there's quite a bit of sacrifice to get all the pieces together. And those mechanical systems, again, this isn't my specific level of expertise, that's more Adam's, but I just see those mechanical systems they're running in very tight tolerances. You're going to low temperature water to make it all work. And so everything has to really hit the nail on the head. Whereas when you don't talk net zero, everything's overbuilt enough so that there's always extra capacity, and it's going to be all great because you have that extra, that 20% or 50%, sometimes more of extra capacity. And so, everything tends to work and nobody has to worry about the tight tolerances. But when it's net zero, we're talking about how much power are we going to get to work with? As much as those panels can provide. And if our mechanical systems aren't aligned and matched with all that, and our envelope isn't tight enough and doesn't have enough, it isn't reducing that load enough, then the mechanical system can't meet the demands of that envelope. So my experience with the schools we've done, not only Mansfield and Belmont, but others that we've done in the past, is that the whole system is much more complex getting to net zero on a school or a commercial sized building. It just doesn't run quite as smoothly as it does for, say, a house. It's been my experience.
In my experience, it can be challenging to get to net zero. It's a lot of building systems that play a part, and we look for that energy model to be done with some buffer. So one of the things on a previous school was not knowing the heat pumps had to be on both at the same time, instead of, this was more of a coordination thing between the manufacturer and the designer that came out later. So we'll be looking at in the peer review for the flows and delta T's to all match up between the heating, cooling, and the well field.
Yeah.
And see how that plays a part with the heat pumps. We also did one where they didn't demo the old boilers just because they weren't sure on the geothermal and heat pumps, and sure enough, they ended up having to run the boilers. This is a job we didn't commission. We came in to do retro commission and try to help them, but they were running the boilers this is a town in Connecticut. They were running their boilers most of the winter still.
Yeah, a lot of lessons learned. So, okay. In the last, I've got 1 or 2 minutes left. So does anyone else have any other questions they want to ask before we move on to the next interview? Hearing none, I guess we're good.
All right. Well,
All right. Thank you for the opportunity.
yes,
Thank you.
thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Yeah, thank you. Great.
Thank you.
Hopefully work with you. potentially. Okay, take care.
Have a nice night.
Bye.
Yeah, you too. So you can maybe, I know you're still on, John, so.
Yeah,
I-
I'm
yeah,
working
yeah.
on moving it over.
Yeah, okay, got it. Okay, so our next interview is Horizon Engineering. Does anyone have any other questions or before we bring them in? Okay, I guess we're ready
No, but I'm
to,
gonna run to the bathroom real quick.
okay, all right, we'll stall for a minute.
Good. I'll get more water.
Okay, yeah, give it 60 seconds.
Raquel, do you want to ask Franklin if it's just him or if it's John Friedman also? Just 'cause
Yeah,
it'll take a
I'll
while for
move
them to
him
get
over
in.
and ask. Yes.
Good evening. So I believe we're waiting for John and I believe
Yes, he's
Marissa on our marketing team as
coming
well.
over now. Oh. Franklin, did you mention someone else? I'm sorry.
Yeah, John Friedman and then Marissa.
Yeah.
Need to go.
Okay.
Yep, good afternoon. Yeah. Yeah, well, wait, Marissa should be here any minute.
Yes, she's moving over.
Okay.
Hello.
So Marissa is going to be sharing her screen for us for the presentation.
Okay. I think we're ready when you guys are. Is everyone in the Zoom meeting?
I think we need a few minutes.
Okay, let us know when you're ready.
Let's see, Sharon, you're back. Is everyone back? George, you're good? I think we're ready to start.
Okay. All right. Thank you for having us. Myself and Frank Sedilla will be doing the presentation for Horizon Engineering. My name is John Friedman. I've been with Horizon, for like 22 years now. So it's been a while. But so I've been, working with Horizon, doing commissioning for over 20 years now. And just a little bit about myself. I went to SUNY Maritime College, which is right in the Bronx under the Throgsneck Bridge, and kind of have the engineering degree, but with the operations background, and kind of fell into the commissioning realm of things. It's kind of very similar to what we learn at the college at SUNY Maritime. That's just a little bit of my background. So.
And I'm Frank Sedillo. So I'm the team lead on the enclosure side of the commissioning division at Horizon. So again, a little bit of background for myself. I've been with Horizon almost 4 years now. I have my architecture degree from the New Jersey Institute of Technology in Newark. And before Horizon, I worked for a Windows storefront and curtain wall manufacturer based out of Teterboro, New Jersey.
Okay. All right, Marissa, you can, yep. So just a little bit about Horizon. we're actually, we merged with another company, FST, which is actually based out of Arizona. They're heavily involved with chip manufacturing plants and doing testing along those lines with companies like Intel. And we're still, doing the commissioning side of things, and not much has changed. Just that we can, we're trying to get more involved with the, the chip manufacturing as well, helping out the FST portion of the company when we can. But myself and Frank, we're still heavily involved in the projects in the Northeast here, and Connecticut, Massachusetts. So basically, Horizon, we've been doing commissioning for a very long time, since 1995 when the company was founded. So it's over 25 years now. We're around 90 employees and heavily involved with the Building Commissioning Association, which, the BCA. That's where you get that accreditation down below, certified commissioning firm. Have quite a few professional engineers on staff as well. We're heavily involved with green buildings, so we have a lead accredited professionals on staff as well. So that's our background as a company, in a nutshell. So this is the project team that would be affiliated with this project. We have the building enclosure side of things, and then the I'll say the MEP side of things, which I would be heading up, would be the MEP side of things. And we have experienced engineers, Joseph Riccardi and Chris Loria. They're both actually, Joseph Riccardi also both Joe and Chris went to maritime colleges as well. They're more I went to New York Maritime. They went to I believe Mass Maritime, not Maine. There is one up in Maine, but they both went to Mass Maritime. So we're, again, they're very well versed with the engineering and also with the operations for the buildings that we're working in. So that's the team from MEP side of things. Frank, you can touch base on your team.
Sure.
Yeah.
On my side, you have myself that'll be kind of leading the front. And then I have Eric Turcott, project engineer, and Scotty Oxett, field engineer. So Eric has been with the company over 5 years now. And then his prior experience, he worked for a couple of building enclosure consultants. He's worked for a metal panel manufacturer. He's worked for a restoration consultant. So he has a lot of experience when it comes to the enclosure. And, part of what he likes to do is to do a lot of assessments on existing buildings as part of what he used to do. And it's still kind of part of what we do. And then we have Scotty Oxett, who's joined the team, I think, a little over a year now. And his background is more on the testing side. So he worked for a testing laboratory that focused again on curtain wall facades and things like that.
I'm thinking you're familiar with the whole commissioning process, but we'll just touch on it in a nutshell. This is, the scope of work for this project. It's, we're familiar with the Connecticut high performance projects, and we've worked on plenty of other projects within Connecticut in the public school system and, universities. We're very, heavily involved down at Yale University, which, they have high expectations for their buildings, high performance, and they're always looking to be more efficient and, with regards to their buildings and energy usage. So with regards to like design early on in the project, that's where we can get a lot of, I'll call it bang for a buck. Things are still on paper. It's easier to fix things on paper before we get out into the building. So that's where I would think we would have a lot of recommendations and just the comments with regards, like some of the things such as accessibility to equipment, but really fine tuning the sequences so they're actually, very allow for an efficient building. And, even the way equipment set up, like an example, this is going to be, it's an elementary school. I would think you're going to have a gym, a cafeteria. A lot of times that gym won't have very many students in it, and sometimes no students in it. A lot of designs right now, they're pumping in so much airflow, outside air into a room with no people in it. Or even if there's only, say it's a small class, 10 students, you don't need like thousands of CFM of outside air just for 5, 10, or even 20 students. But a lot of designs for these schools are just pumping in a lot of outside air. That's just money, it's basically a lot of extra energy consumption. So there's a lot of things we can do with the sequences to make that building a lot more efficient. That goes for, those are the high occupancy areas like gyms, if there's an auditorium, and definitely like a cafeteria type area. Even a classroom, if maybe it's not being used the entire day, but there's features that can be implemented to make that system quite a bit more efficient. That's a big thing that we, so during design, we're looking to, work with the project team to make that, building as efficient as possible. And there's a lot of ways to do it. And we try to think outside the box just to make this, at the end of the day, the building's there for a good learning environment, but you can do it in a very efficient way as well without sacrificing the learning environment. So I'll just touch on, and then as we move into construction, we would develop the pre-functional checklist and the functional checklist. We would be a part of reviewing submittals, and a big thing that happened early on in the project is with regards to controls. That's going to be the brains of your building. Have a controls integration, controls integration meeting, just to really make sure we're all on the same page with regards to controls. And we'll touch on that in another slide. But that's really crucial to make sure we're all on the same page. We don't want to be trying to make sure we're on the same page when we're doing functional testing. We want to do it early on in the project, so we're not having a lot of issues later on in the project. And that actually does happen. We've had quite a few issues on, down in Norwalk. There was some issues. There's controls that come with the equipment and controls with the building automation system. And if they're fighting each other, we don't want the manufacturer's controls and the building automation system controls contradicting one another. So that's part of, early on in the project, we can iron a lot of that stuff out. I think the big thing is just communication during construction with the contractors, the project managers, the construction team, and the design team to iron out things, with regards to the more complicated things that come with a building. So Frank, I don't know if you want to chime in about building enclosure.
Yeah, I think we have a slide, the next slide, and then I can kind of jump in on some points on the enclosure side. So, I mean, kind of to add with what John does, right? Essentially, we have the same process, but, our focuses are a little different. So, during the design phase, we're going to review the drawings. We're not looking to change any designs. We're looking there to make sure that there's a continuous air barrier. Materials are where they should be, that your wall system is going to behave the way it's intended. At the end of the day, we want a water and airtight envelope, especially with this type of project. You can have the best kind of mechanical and HVAC systems you want out there, but if you don't have a tight envelope, it's really not going to make much of a difference. And one of the other focuses that we're going to go in there is make sure we have put together a testing matrix, which will be part of our building enclosure commissioning plan. So we're going to look at the specifications, look at what's put there for testing in the field, whether that be in a mock-up or in situ during construction, and really make sure that those tests are understood that are appropriate for the type of project that you have, right, for the requirements that you have, and B, that the contractor understands what testing is going to be done, right? So we put that in a matrix, and then hopefully that gets kind of translated down when it comes to construction And then again, the focus will be if there is a mock-up during construction, testing on that mock-up, or again, testing on site. So a lot of our focus is really to make sure that testing program is detailed out appropriately, and that everyone understands, you know, what is going to be happening, and especially what the consequences are going to be, because, you know, a lot of the time there are failures out in the field, unfortunately. So we have to make sure that the contractor or whoever's in responsibility for the testing, that they understand the consequences of that as well. Again, a big thing with Horizon is being boots on the ground. So we'll have our engineers out there witnessing at the beginning of all construction milestones. So the beginning of your roofing, the beginning of any current wall, window, punch window installations, beginning of air barriers. So we want to be out there at the very beginning to ensure that everything's meeting the contract documents and the approved submittals, right? The last thing we want to do is to go out there, find a deficiency, and, you know, start opening things up again. And then, you know, throughout that, again, we'll put together all that. Hopefully by then, everything is tested out well, everything is passed, and then, you know, that'll kind of come into our final report. And again, we'll be on site to meet with, you know, to meet with staff and everybody to make sure that everyone understands at least what happens afterwards during a warranty phase, to ensure that proper maintenance is done on the facade, or at least that the maintenance team understands the types of systems that are being installed and any type of maintenance that's going to happen there.
So we talked a little bit about the commissioning process, and I touched on it a little bit. A big thing, you know, it's a team effort. It's not just us pointing fingers and pointing out that everything that's wrong with the project. A big thing is, you know, if you're going to have, say, you know, 50 fan coil units, or, you know, that are part of like a VRF system being in variable refrigerant flow system being installed, maybe that first one that's installed, if we all agree, you know, we review it right when it's installed, and we all agree that that's the right way, it's installed per the plans and specifications, then go ahead with the other, you know, 49 units. We don't want to come in at the end after all, like say 30 or 40 of them are installed, and find out that there's something wrong with it. So we're trying to be proactive, and, you know, with regards to working with the construction team and making sure we make if we make their job easier, then our job is a lot easier as well. So that's just a team effort. And that kind of thing is, you know, we'll participate in commissioning meetings, conduct commissioning meetings, participate in construction meetings as needed, work with the design professionals if there is a installation issue. A lot of times, maybe it is installed per, like, the sequence is programmed right on the money. It just isn't working the way that, you know, it's written down on a piece of paper. So some adjustments, it's not like we may have a recommendation to improve it, but it needs to be approved by the design team. We're not here, and we don't want the contractors just making changes on their own without keeping the design team in the loop on that. And Frank mentioned boots on the ground. Yeah, we're hands-on company. Like I said, you know, being from Maritime, we're, you know, pretty hands-on when it comes to inspecting systems. And, you know, if we have to crawl around in the ceiling, that's fine. You know, that's just normal for us to make sure everything's ducted correctly, piped up correctly. You know, all the sensors are where they're supposed to be. So we're pretty good about doing a solid inspection of the system that's being installed, and communicating with the contractors. If we do see an issue, we, you know, let the construction team know about it before we leave the job site. And a lot of times, you know, when we're in those buildings, we've worked in plenty of schools, and we've helped operate a lot of the schools that we've commissioned. So we're looking at it, you know, as if we're going to operate that building and taking ownership with it. That comes, you know, there's a big turnover process, making sure you get adequate O&M manuals. The owner training is adequate. There's no, a lot of times this stuff it is complicated to the people that are going to be trying to operate it. So it's not like you just do a training and then say, see you later. It takes a little bit to come up to speed on some of this stuff. So we're always a resource that they can use if they have a question, even if it's 8 months later or a year later. We typically understand that system pretty well after we commission it. So just some of these things at the bottom. OPR means owner project requirement. That's just something during the design phase, making sure that everything that the school wants with regards to the commission system is being input into the design. Whether that it could be as simple as like a sequence of operation that it is needed, or a type of, maybe you just prefer a certain type of control system. So just making sure you get what you really wanted, and you don't, nothing gets missed. Like I said before, communication is key. It could be through a meeting. So we're, field reports that we document. When we do a site visit, we have field reports documenting what we found and observed while we were on site. And no one likes the word, but no matter what, there are going to be some deficiencies. We track it. We have a deficiency list, and when the contractors say that they are resolved, we go back and reinspect. We like to take their word that they did fix it, but we always have to go back and reinspect that it was actually corrected, or retest it. If it's a sequence of operation, we would retest it after they correct that sequence. I think you can go to, next slide. I'll touch on this. This is how everything that we do from a commissioning standpoint is web-based now. We're not like printing out 3-ring binders worth of checklists. You can print them out if you want, but it's all on a site that we call Facility Grid. That's where the checklists are generated. We house our deficiency list on the Facility Grid site as well. So it's basically that's where we fill it out. We're not we can give you guys certain levels of access. You can type in comments if you wanted, but the main thing is that's how we maintain our commissioning documentation, and we let you see all of the documentation as it's being, say it's a chiller checklist. You can go in there and view it, and then as it's filled out, as the chiller is installed, we would check away on the boxes. If there are deficiencies, you would see the deficiencies associated with that chiller. And so it's all it's basically just being transparent with the project team.
And you can assign the issues to the specific contractor as well, which is once everyone's signed up, which is a good feature.
Yeah, if
Keep
it's
track.
electrical, if it's something with the electrical, or if it's a piping issue or if it's something to do with the plumbing, like say a domestic hot water heater, the trade is identified who's responsible for the issue that was found. So, and all these issues, we would, like I said, before we leave the job site, we don't expect them to just, actually an email can get sent out like, if a plumbing issue was entered into the system, an email will get sent to that plumbing contractor notifying them. So they don't always have to just check in here every few days to see what's going on. An email would be, generated for them. So, so we're just, now we'll start touching on some of the systems that are, getting more specific toward your school. So we understand, a geothermal is something that may be provided for the school. So just these are some of the projects that we've had that geothermal systems that we've had plenty of jobs with just heat pumps, but not the geothermal system. They're just air cooled on the roof, or just an air cooled system. But that's Yale as of right now. They're using a lot of heat pumps, but they haven't done too much with the geothermal quite yet. So that's it. I'm not going to dive into specifics, but a lot of these are the projects that actually did go venture into the geothermal and not just using a heat pump. So you can go, yeah, next slide. So just stating some of our, I know this, as of right now, this project isn't seeking lead. I believe that's what was mentioned in the RFP, but it's a Connecticut high performance school. But obviously you're looking to be very energy efficient. So we're well versed with the whole, the lead commissioning format, which is the Connecticut high performance is basically based on the lead commissioning process. They're very similar. So we're well versed in that process that's required for those types of buildings. And just, stating we're familiar with, renewable type energy systems, whether it's geothermal, photovoltaics. Actually, one of the other schools on the previous page had wind power. They did have some interesting systems inside the school with like an atrium feature with some water, and they use that water to humidify the building. So there's that the RIT building was actually generated more power than it consumed. So that was quite an interesting project. They were actually creating more energy than they were consuming. So just to really have a high energy efficient building, I mentioned this before, sequences of operations are going to be a very key thing. If you're just running, large amounts of airflow into a room when there's no one in there, that's almost like leaving a window open in your house in the wintertime. I mean, it's like just not necessary, and it can be easily avoided through sequences of operation. And some other features, water reclamation systems, they're always key to energy efficient building. So, okay, next, Marissa. So just some of the, again, some of the buildings that have been very energy efficient, and that top one, the Golisano Institute, actually created more energy than it was consuming. So you can go to the next slide. Yep. So just some, this is there's two slides here, this one and the next one, just some project understanding and possible potential challenges that we possibly see with your building and buildings of, K through 12 type buildings. A lot of times the units that are, whether it's a heat pump system, a VRF system, or energy recovery unit up on the roof, you have a lot of package controls, and then there's building automation controls. That's fine, but those controls, they can fight each other. We need to really address that early on in the project. At Yale, we did we always say controls integration meeting. We ended up having 4 or 5 of them to really iron it out early on in the project. And it took the controls contractor along with the rooftop unit manufacturer for them to get on the same page. It wasn't just one meeting. It took 4, it may have been 5 meetings to really iron it out. And when we did functional testing, that helped tremendously to make it a smoother process. I mean, not everything's energy related. Yeah, the main thing for this building is you want a good learning environment. And if you can't sacrifice the learning environment just for energy efficiency, you want it to be energy efficiency, but bottom line is it needs to be a good learning environment. If you have a noisy classroom because you have some energy saving feature for some reason, it's just not going to work out. Like we've had we've had daylighting controls. The teacher couldn't stand it. It was just disrupting the entire classroom. So no, what she did, she just found some duct tape and taped it. No one even told her to do it. She duct taped right over the sensor. So the lights were on full blast all the time now. So they know how to if it's going to annoy the classroom, they're going to find a way to either complain or they get pretty creative and know how to bypass some of those systems, whether it's daylighting or an air conditioning system. So just something sometimes for these buildings, this would be like a larger building, sometimes typically a high school. If there's some interior office spaces, a lot of times they shut off all the cooling for the building, but there's higher heat loads. Maybe it's a room with copy machines or a computer type room, but just that would get caught early on in design. Like, and if you have a VRF system, this would not be an issue because you can, the system can do cooling and heating at the same time. The bullet with the demand control ventilation sequence, that kind of comes into play, like I was talking about for the gyms and the auditoriums and the cafeterias. If there's no one in those rooms or very few people, you don't need to be pumping in thousands and tens of thousands of CFM of airflow. It's just, like I said, it's just very inefficient. There are sequences to avoid that, and which will translate into significant energy savings. Just the air handling units, yeah, a lot of times we are putting in DOAS units, like outside air system units, and a key thing is at startup on a very cold day, there's no one in the building yet. A lot of them, some of them don't have the recirculation dampers now, and you're pulling in single digit outside air and you're tripping free stats and that kind of thing. And if you do have that recirc damper, it's a lot easier to start up that unit in the very cold temperatures, and it's just more efficient, period. Marissa, you can go to the next slide. I think we're getting close to the end here. I've talked about excessive ventilation. We would avoid that for the larger rooms. A key thing to have are these control integration meetings. They're just very important early on in the project. And we are a resource, like I said, after that building's open, even after the warranty period or during that warranty period, we can assist. That may not be in the scope fully we're not there to assist the guy every day with operating the building, but we can log in remotely and help out. That comes in very handy when we can log in remotely and help troubleshoot something with the building operator. Next slide. These are just some of the schools that we've done or are doing right now in Connecticut. So we're like Hinsdale, we're doing that one right now, and Chamberlain, we're doing that one right now. But we've had successful projects with the other ones that are listed. Marissa, next. Yep. This is basically the last slide. So just to recap, we're here long-term outlook, like we're looking, as if we're going to operate this building alongside, your building operator for the next 20 years. We're not just right when that project's done, we know things can go wrong, and it's not always a perfect world for that building operator. There's a lot of things that happen with the hot days, the shoulder seasons, and then the very cold days. And even during rainstorms, ice storms, odd things happen with the equipment that aren't always part of the test script per se. So driving the commissioning process, we're just here to work with everyone as a team, and just communication is key. And we're on the same page as everyone else. We're just trying to build a good building and have it operate correctly, so that the main thing, it's a very good learning environment. That's the main focus for a public school. So I'm just trying, I don't think I need to, we've touched on hands-on approach. The test procedures, they're specific to the building. They're not just generic test procedures. They're specific to the air handler and the options that are selected and the sequences of operation that are coming with that. And I think just something we add is, being able to troubleshoot. Anyone can point out an issue. We can come up with recommendations on how to make things better, whether that's during the design phase or the construction phase. We're not there just to point out issues and say, you guys figure it out. You know, we're trying to work with you as a team and come up with solutions and to make the building a better place and a very good learning environment. So Marissa, what's the next slide? I think, you know, that was the end of the presentation. So if there's any questions with regards to the process, we can help you.
Great, thanks, John.
Yeah.
So to my team, Woody, do you have any questions?
Yeah, well, I'd like to ask John pretty much the same as what I asked BVH. Does the firm have any certified geo designers on board? Are any of them, if you do, are any of them in Connecticut? And how many Connecticut-based geo exchange systems have you commissioned in a size range similar to what we're doing?
Right. The geo, well, no, we don't have any the certified geo design engineers on our staff. And the geo systems that we have done are in other areas, you know, bordering states to Connecticut, not in Connecticut. The geothermal systems that we've done, like obviously Rochester, that's in Rochester, New York. So that was the one I talked about in the presentation.
Yeah, thank you, John.
Yeah.
So John, a question for you. Did you include mileage in your numbers?
Yeah. Yes, that's the expenses are included in the fee. I don't have it right in front of me. I don't know if we broke out the expenses separately or not.
Yeah, I thought I saw somewhere that they were not included.
We
but I'm
do.
not-
We do have employees, some, you know, they live in Westchester County, so they're very close to commuting to Connecticut. So it's not everyone coming from, well, the guys for this job, they'll be coming from Massachusetts actually, but they don't just, when they go down there, we have other jobs in the area, whether it's Yale or other projects in Connecticut. We don't just, you know, so that's part of the, when they're commuting into Connecticut. Like Yale, we have multiple projects going on, so we're always, you know, very active in that area.
Got it. Just a general question. What percentage of your time is spent before occupancy and post occupancy in terms of, I think you got some numbers, but what's your?
Yeah. If you don't mind, can you say the question again? Before
So how much-
occupancy?
Yeah. How much time do you spend before occupancy and how much time do you spend after, you know, occupancy?
Like the warranty, like not the warranty
Well,
period.
yeah. I mean, separate from the warranty, but when the owner moves in, you know, because
Yeah, the warranty period.
Yeah.
A typical breakdowns is, I think close to 15% is after, you know, the warranty period is like close to 15% of the time. I mean, that could be, you know, there's the warranty review, the seasonal testing. There's obviously some paperwork in there, whether it's final report or a systems manual. Some of that time might be part of the warranty period as well, you know, field reports and that kind of thing. But that's a kind of a typical breakdown. I would think it wouldn't be higher than 20% typically. So I'd say closer to 15.
Okay. Thanks. Another question. In terms of the geothermal, and we just commissioned the geothermal system. It took a little while longer to get it running properly. And some people said, well, geothermal always takes a little longer to get fine tuned. I'm just wondering if that's been your experience and if you have any, you know, thoughts on that.
Yeah, I know we did have issues with, this was a job in Michigan actually that I worked on with the geothermal, the sizing of the piping. I got my dog barking at me. So he's wondering why I'm yelling into a computer, but So
It's not your wife, John. That's
yeah, no, she's not home right now, but but no, the piping sizes up at the heat pump units were not correct. So we were having issues just with the cooling the equipment off with the geothermal system. So then give me 1 second. Let me let him outside. No, Jesus Christ, fucking retard. All right, go. There, I got him outside. Okay. There. Okay. Okay, I got him out. So, okay. Yeah, no, it was the way the wells themselves were fine. It was the piping in the building actually that wasn't at the units. They weren't getting enough GPM through the equipment to cool it off. So that it took a bit to get that correct. So because the equipment was tripping off on whether it was a high heat load or in whatever mode it was in, it was tripping due to the lack of water flow through the equipment. So yeah, I mean, I guess the units that you were doing was it like a sequence of operation modification or yeah, you don't want to have, like I said, it's easy to fix something on paper, but if you start having pipe size is incorrect, then that's a whole nother, that gets more complicated. So
yeah, we kind of chased it in circle or went around in circles a little bit. We finally got it done, but it took a while.
Yeah.
To chase it down. But
No, the system that we did in Rochester, that actually went well without a hitch out there. So we did not have issues on that system. So yeah, I don't want to say definitely don't want to say it's hit or miss, but I think a lot of that can be avoided, during the design phase if you iron out those issues early on in the project with during the design reviews that are being done. So
yeah, okay, thanks. Any other questions for the rest of my team in the minute or so we got left? I think we're good. Well, thank you very much and appreciate all your time and
Yep.
we'll be making a decision in the next few weeks and hopefully be in touch.
okay,
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
You.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Let your dog back in.
Yeah,
It's
no, I know. Yeah, he's looking at me actually right in the door over here. But all right, thank you.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Thanks, John.
Bye.
Take care. Does anyone need a drink, bathroom break or otherwise?
I wouldn't mind a quick break.
Okay, we'll
Yeah.
give you 2
Just-
minutes.
Good.
Okay.
Maybe I should have brought him all turn it off. We can't hear you. But maybe you want to chat.
Is everyone back? I see Woody's back. I see Amanda's still got her screen. You're back? I think Raquel, you can bring in our next guests. Evening, everyone.
Good evening.
You have your whole team. I think it's Bill and Dave Madigan. You guys have just you two guys, or is anyone else joining us?
It'll just be the two of us tonight.
Okay. Well, just the A-listers. So that's good.
You got it.
Okay, so we have a little like a 30-minute presentation. You can do what you'd like, and then we have kind of a 15 minutes or so questions. If you use less time, don't feel you got to use the whole half hour, but we'll go from there.
Okay.
I think you can start. We're not running a type stopwatch, but it's 7:06, and you can start.
Okay. Well, thanks for having us. My name's Bill Donald, and with me is Dave Madigan, one of the principals of the company. And we just put together a pretty brief, presentation to hopefully address what you were looking for in the RFP. And we have a few items that might be, a duplicate from some of the information we submitted in the RFP. But we figured we just have a little recap for those that maybe didn't get a chance to read all of that. So I'm just going to get started here. Can everybody see the PowerPoint?
Yep, perfect.
Great. So we're going to just go through an introduction, a little bit about Van Zelm, some of the services we do, who we've would like to put in this project if we were awarded it. Just go through a few of the team measures credentials, just so you know who you're dealing with. And then we want to talk a little bit about a commissioning portal if it's needed. And then we'll close it out with some related experience for projects we feel would be pretty similar to the ones that you're looking to do here.
So I'll give you a little overview of Van Zelm. I'm Dave Madigan, by the way. I'm one of the principals here. Been with the firm for nearly 40 years, as hard as that is to believe. We're a well-established firm. The firm's been around for 90 years, over 90 years, established in 1930. We're the largest mechanical, electrical engineering firm in the state. We have corporate headquarters in Farmington. That's where the bulk of our folks are. Then we have additional offices in Long Meadow and Charlotte, North Carolina. We do work throughout the Northeast. We focus really on educational work. We do a wide variety of educational work, from college, university to private schools, a lot of public school work. And education is really the largest component of the work that we do. We'll talk a little bit more about some of our markets and stuff. We have a staff of 90. About 80 of them are in Farmington, within about 45 minutes of Madison. I actually was down in Westbrook this morning, have a summer place down there. So I spent a lot of time in the Madison and Connecticut coastal area. We do some national work, but the predominance is in New England and New York, and we're doing a lot in New Jersey these days. But generally, we focus on the Northeast, and we like to be relatively close to the projects we do to provide the level of service that is needed for the kind of mechanical electrical work that we do. Sustainable design has been a major focus of our business, and we've got literally dozens and dozens of projects that have either been LEED certified or are net zero. We've done a number of LEED platinum jobs and a number of net zero energy projects. So we fully understand the goals that the committee has put forth for this project, and are looking forward to helping you satisfy them. We provide a wide range of services. Here, we're talking about commissioning today, and that's a really strong component of our business. But we're mechanical and electrical only. We've resisted the urge to get into other facets of engineering, structural or civil, environmental or architectural or anything. So we really just do mechanical, electrical engineering. But within the mechanical, electrical realm, we offer a really wide range of services. Commissioning, as we noted, but we're a full service mechanical electrical system design firm, and we work very closely between the design teams and the commissioning team, and we really share work back and forth when there's design reviews required. The commissioning guys will do it, but they'll also engage some of the design people to get their insight on design elements, and that's really critical when we're engaged early on, as is the case here, in overseeing and looking at the design work and challenging the design team on the the approaches that they're taking and some of the approaches for satisfying the project goals and that sort of thing. But we also do master planning. We do sustainable design consulting, technology. And we do a lot of renewable energy system design, photovoltaics, cogeneration systems. We do a lot of geothermal work, and sometimes we'll do that independently of design or commissioning work that we're on. We just consult on that sort of thing. So wide range of capabilities within the firm. Go ahead, Bill.
So this it's to kind of reiterate our commissioning staff. And like Dave, I've been with Van Zoom quite long. I started in 1998. But we have a dedicated commissioning group that's full-time commissioning. We've got certified building commissioning professionals through both AEE and BCA. Professional engineers. We've got a level 2 certified thermographer, and so on. We even have one of our staff has an S1 from his previous career. So we've made a point to have sort of hands-on folks. We've got a couple on our staff that are both from the building automation world, their previous lives. We've done some teaching at the University of Hartford on commissioning and retro commissioning, and they also asked us to author an article in the Handbook of Professional Practice for the AIA a couple years ago. And of course, we're members of all the various trade groups. This is, this is in the RFP that we submitted, but this is just another snapshot of the folks that we're planning to use in this project. This is the team, and there's other people that could be brought into this, as Dave mentioned, for design review and other reasons. But the bulk of the work will be done by the people you see here. And just to reiterate some of our resumes, we've got pretty extensive experience both in the design world, which Dave mentioned, and as well as direct commissioning related credentials. So
And my involvement would be more overseeing the design side. Bill would really be overseeing the the commissioning side. So for design reviews, I would take an active role and engage other folks from our office as needed. But my specialty has been sustainable design for many years, and not to brag or anything, but we've done really some of the most sustainable projects in the whole country, not just the Northeast, but these are nationally recognized projects, and many net zero energy buildings, and some really complex, challenging projects where we've been able to bring them in with really low energy use in various building types and educational goals.
So one thing, if you needed it, we make this a commissioning portal for every one of our projects, whether the project uses it or not. This happens to be a recent one for Waterbury Public Schools. So if you didn't have Procore or something like that, we could give access to our portal, which has everything from online tracking of any issues. We warehouse, as you can see here, we warehouse all our photos. We could put drawings, pretty much anything project related, we would have under its own specific portal. So we've reached the related experience part, which is, I think, where we want to spend most of our presentation here. We tried to find some projects that are, that could possibly be close to what you're working with here for the Madison School. And Waterford High School, that was geothermal with lead. Lime High School, there was hundreds of wells for that project. We had a project up at UMass. We had a project at Mass Fish and Wildlife, which is another net zero building. And I think, Dave, maybe you could speak to the ongoing work we're doing for Stafford, just to kind of reiterate our geothermal background.
Yeah, the Stafford project is an interesting one. We're actively engaged there right now, and it's a little confidential, so we didn't want to make a slide and be too public with it. But Stafford Schools went out for a design build project to put geothermal systems in for their 3 schools: high school, middle school, and elementary school, along with their library. So it was 4 of their major buildings, and they went out design build and engaged a firm actually out of Oklahoma to do it. And they had a designer out of Oregon, I think. And they went ahead and did this. This was a multi-million-dollar project on the existing schools. And the whole thing went ahead, got installed, and it simply worked miserably. It just has not been able to function in a heating mode since it was installed about 5 years ago, and it's become a legal issue. So they engaged us to evaluate why the systems haven't functioned properly and come up with remedial work to get them properly functional. And we've done some really in-depth analysis on what can go wrong with geothermal systems and their application to educational buildings. And it's been very eye-opening to see the kind of problems that can happen when these systems are not properly designed and integrated with the building systems. And this is an ongoing assessment, and we will be completing the work this fall, completing the initial study, and then the implementation of the remedial measures will get started. And it's quite enlightening to see what happened and why. I'd be happy to elaborate on it in depth, but we probably don't have enough time here. But we've also on the design side. So these are projects that we've commissioned that are geothermal in nature and or net zero. The Mass Fish and Wildlife project, which we'll talk about some more, was the first net zero energy building in Massachusetts and one of the first in the country. But we've designed, and that was a job we designed, the Mass Fish and Wildlife and UMass Crotty Hall. Those are both projects we designed and commissioned. But we've also designed many geothermal systems and have several under construction right now. So we have a great wealth of understanding of geothermal systems within our office.
So just, for some related experience, Dave mentioned this University of Massachusetts Crotty Hall. This was a it wasn't net zero when we got involved. There was Van Zelm did the design, and another commissioning firm did the commissioning, and it didn't go well. The building didn't quite work as expected. It wasn't net zero at the time. Things were running 24 hours a day. There was issues with keeping things running and so on. So they brought us in, even though we were the design engineer. They trusted the fact that we could help them out. So it was a good long about 12 months of seasonal adjusting and testing and repairs. But the building is now net zero, and they're actually it's finally working the way they expected it to go. We do some monitoring, which we'll talk about in some of these other projects too, is we basically stay engaged for various, like I was looking at it over the weekend and during these hot spells, we like to monitor these buildings because you can only simulate a 95 or 100-degree day. You really need to see it in action. So a lot of these clients we stay engaged with beyond the project as a resource to them.
Yeah, we, and I'll just mention, we're also doing a lot of other work at the UMass campus. We're doing their new computer science center, which is going to be a geothermal project as well. And they made the commitment to be carbon neutral by 2030. So we're working with them on the overall campus conversion. And we're actually doing a seminar for them next month on basics of geothermal for their facilities folks, but also for their administration, because they're going to be spending literally hundreds of millions of dollars toward this end. And even the administration wants to fully understand what geothermal is all about and what it means to the campus. So that's going to be, and we see that at many campuses now. We're working with Wesleyan University, Mass Maritime Academy. All of these campuses have made commitments to be carbon neutral, and they're looking at some very large scale geothermal installations. So,
yeah, and one more thing to mention on this UMass one. This building was very complex for them. We ended up writing an operations manual for the building, which basically it was a custom manual so that they know all of the set points, all the things you can and cannot touch, and basically some basic information. It was basically written so they could hand this off to a contractor or even their own facility folks and understand the building better. And there's lots of different things, strategies that were done here for energy conservation reasons. So we wanted to make sure that we have an operations manual so nobody undoes what's taken on over a year to do. So that was another service we provided. The next sort of related project we think would be the Mass Fish and Wildlife building. It's kind of like the UMass project. It was installed. It wasn't well understood by the installing contractors, and they basically had a real massive humidity issue early on. Not to mention this particular building, there's a pond in the lobby. So not only did they have humidity issues from this mechanical systems, but they also had to contend with water, thousands of gallons of water for a dozen or so fish in their pond inside the building. So we got involved sort of post occupancy, as Dave mentioned, and we did a lot of, these were multi-stack chillers. There was lots of integration issues or lack of integration with the building automation. There was actual physical problems with the multi-stack that we had to bring in and work hand in hand with the multi-stack people. And then we went through several different training sessions with the staff so they understood what they should and should not be doing. Part of their request from us after we got involved when the building was operating as it finally properly, they wanted to go out to bid for preventive maintenance. So we basically wrote a custom preventive maintenance program with all the preventive maintenance procedures relative to the building, every piece of equipment, basically what needs to happen, the duration, how many times a year. And that allowed them to basically put this out to bid and have everybody bid on it apples to apples, since it's basically a formal PM program. And like with UMass, the ongoing building monitoring, we continue to log in and check the building and alert them if we see anything that's out of the ordinary. And things do come up. We do find that people have made adjustments that they shouldn't have or didn't realize. So, we usually have a good relationship beyond these projects, because we have so much institutional knowledge of the building.
Yeah, I mean, the sad part of this project, and this was a project Van Zelm designed, it was very high visibility because it was the first net zero building in Massachusetts. And the building was constructed and was fully commissioned, and it was a state kind of low bid kind of project. And when everybody walked away from the job, it simply was performing horrendously. The environmental conditions, the energy performance, all this, just nothing was working well, and it was reflecting badly on us as the engineer of record. And I said, look, guys, there's nothing wrong with this design. I know we can get it to function properly if we just can roll up our sleeves and get in there and deal with it. And I brought Bill and his group in, and it was amazing the number of deficiencies that were found that were so blatant that they just got in there and found like 200 things wrong, and one by one we corrected them all, and now the place works great, and we now use them as a reference for future work, where when the project was first completed, they were not too happy with the design team because nothing worked, and we said it's not the design, it's about really tuning these systems and getting them to function properly, and it's a real challenge these days. But it takes somebody who's not just checking the boxes from a commissioning standpoint, but someone who's willing to get in there and really resolve the issues and really understand the deficiencies.
So this is just a screenshot of some of the automated logic graphics that we even corrected the graphics because a lot of the graphics were incorrect. The last sort of related experience project is Waterford High School had pretty large geothermal installation. They had what they termed reversible chillers at the time, but basically heat pumps with a different name. So that was all heat pumps, and that was actually a chilled beam project throughout the school as well. So you can see there's a photo of the mechanical room with all the chillers in it, and then here's the building automation graphics for part of that system. And that took some doing. We stayed on post occupancy. They kept us on for another 9 months, again because there was so many issues both with the reversible chillers failing and alarms and flow issues. And so, some of these systems, it's a challenge to, work out all the, there's lots of moving parts to these, and a lot of the contractors only generally focus on their particular trade, but with commissioning, we have to take into account all the different disciplines. So that's where I think we tend to be the strongest, is getting all these contractors together, to solve these problems. But that one eventually, we worked out all of the problems with the manufacturer, as well as the original design engineer, which wasn't Van Zelm. And, Waterford has turned out to be a very good reference for us as well.
Yeah, one of the issues we see regularly is though these systems are becoming more mainstream in nature, contractors are really not as familiar with these systems. They're new. Both the controls folks and the mechanical folks don't have a lot of experience with them, and there are intricacies that they're just not familiar with, and it takes a lot of hand-holding to get these projects done properly, and we find that the design teams are often kind of unwilling to do that, or it's not within the realm of the challenge is, you lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And, you can put stuff on a field report 50 times, but getting the contractor to correct it can be a real challenge. And that's where, our commissioning guys take a little different approach to getting stuff done, and they'll really get in there and work to resolve it directly versus just putting it on an issues log and expecting someone else to take care of it.
So, I mentioned before that we oftentimes, stay engaged well beyond the end of construction and occupancy. And some of the reasons is for monitoring purposes, making sure everything's still working through the seasons. And then there's other, impacts on energy that we make sure that we follow as well, because part of these, the goal is, to have a net zero building, for instance, but make sure it stays that way. So we generally end up into some pretty long-term relationships with some of our clients, because they don't always have the internal resources for this type of thing. So, 3-4 times a year, we would do, regular monitoring, making sure there's nothing out of the ordinary with energy consumption or the building, temperatures and humidities. So that's just, another one of our sort of services that we typically do. And I think, part of our, our draw here, we've gone to lots of training over the years with our people for various technologies, both, geothermal, variable refrigerant flow, different manufacturers. We've taken the time to actually, as new technologies develop, we try to stay, ahead of the game in terms of our technical expertise. I think as far as geothermal, I think, Dave, between the design and the commissioning groups, I think we've, got, many projects to kind of demonstrate our capability. As Dave mentioned, some of these didn't start out great, but, we ended up getting, once the buildings, were working, I think, a lot of the, everyone was just happy to have a building that was working both from a performance standpoint as well as, keeping good temperature and humidity controls. We do pay attention to energy conservation and sustainability, as we mentioned before. We need to be hands-on. We don't go in there with a notepad and just, find 100 things and say, call us when it's done. Most of this stuff, you got to be part of the team to actually get to a solution. So we feel we work pretty well with the design engineers. I think you've got Kohler Ronan on this particular one.
Yes.
Tecton and Kohler Ronan. So we've done
Both firms that we know well and have worked with in the past, good firms.
So, and again, one of our biggest, I think, strength is project management. I mean, as I said earlier, we need to be the people that bring all the different parties to the table, and especially when there's an issue. So I think if you check some of our references, you'll see that we get pretty invested in our projects, sometimes to a fault, but we take it pretty serious when we do this, because we know that, the next project, we'd love to think you'd be a good reference for us as well. So
and I'll just add that, we are oftentimes not the low cost provider. And I think that, I've been involved in numerous projects where I think the commissioning process was really flawed, and a lot of money was spent without a lot of really positive outcome. And, it's my feeling that as a building committee, and I'm on the building committee for the town of Canton, and have overseen school renovation projects from your side of the table. And you really want to pick the most qualified firm, not necessarily the one with the lowest price, because commissioning is really about putting in the time and effort, having the properly qualified people put the time and effort in to get the real value. So while and I don't know how the prices look compared to our competitors here, but we're often not the lowest price, but I think we bring the best value because we have some really highly qualified people who take this work really seriously, and it brings it makes the commissioning process a worthwhile effort. So.
Great,
So
thanks for the job, David, Bill. So we have, I don't know after that if we have too many questions, but Woody, if you want to start us off?
Sure, absolutely. I'm going to ask the typical questions of Dave. Dave, how many, being an MEP, how many certified geo designers are on staff?
We don't have any certified geo designers, and when we do geothermal projects, we typically we will design all the work within the building. So we design all the heat pumps and all the water flow, and we do all the loads. And we typically interface with a geotechnical designer. We've worked on pretty much all of our projects. We work with Haley and Aldrich. And I don't know if you know Haley and Aldrich, but they're a
No, I don't.
nationally known geotechnical and hydrogeology firm. And we pretty much work with them, and they design all the underground systems. So they'd be responsible for drilling the test well, monitoring the test well, developing the results like the thermal diffusivity, soil conductivity, all this kind of stuff. And then we work together to develop the proper number of wells and the well performance. I was actually spent half of the morning today on the phone with them for a project that we're doing at Colby College up in Maine, and we're working with them on half a dozen other projects actively right now. So typically we are responsible for the work within the building, and then we work with a dedicated geotechnical design firm for the actual ground geo exchange system.
Good, thank you. How many systems, geo exchange systems, have you commissioned of similar size to ours in Connecticut? Roughly.
Bill, in Connecticut, probably half a dozen, something like that. We've done more outside of Connecticut as well, but go ahead, Bill, how many?
Yeah, I think in Connecticut, it's at least like 6 or 8 of them, total schools or buildings.
Okay, thank. And Dave, continuing, and how many have you designed that are similar in size?
Similar in size, probably at this point, probably 9 or 10, I think. And they're in a variety of applications. We have similar, we just completed a larger project at Lawrenceville School down in New Jersey. That is, the construction is just completing. The well field has all been put in place, and all the systems are functional now, but it hasn't been turned over yet. We're designing one right now up at Colby College that I mentioned. We're designing one at UMass right now. So we've got a number in design, and we've probably got, I'd say maybe, probably 8 or 9 that we've completed, something like that.
Okay. And looking over the spreadsheet that shows where you've got the money and the different part of the scope for each of the projects, you've got well under 15% for post-construction, for occupancy operations, for measurement, for all of that, which seems somewhat low compared to everybody else, and somewhat low to me because so much of getting these systems to run properly happens after occupancy. Would you elaborate on that a bit for me?
Well, it's we try to use the other projects, that when we do sort of a post-mortem on some of our other projects, we try to figure out where the best where each particular phase, what we've spent, and it's always, as you mentioned, it depends on how many problems you're going to run into. The hope is, like, we have I think a pretty fair amount of hours in the design phase, and our hope, between our experience from our commissioning team and our design team, that when we get to occupancy and operations phase, we hope we've kind of rooted out some of the major things during design reviews, which is always the hope. Nothing's ever going to be perfect, but our goal is to take our lessons learned from all of our other projects and try to apply them before there's a problem in the occupancy and operations phase. So
Yeah, you really don't want to be doing kind of ongoing commissioning while the building is occupied. It's, you know, the goal is to really get it properly commissioned while construction is underway. And, you know, there's always going to be lingering issues, but, you know, really you want to focus on getting everything done and buttoned up. And it's challenging. You really have to kind of push because everybody's just trying to get off the job at the end of, you know, at the end of construction. And you really got to, while everybody is there engaged and on site is when you really want to deal with all these issues. Once the contractors leave and the occupants are in the building, it's just really a lot messier to deal with issues. So getting it done right the first time, I think is the best way to go. But, you know, there always are issues to deal with after occupancy takes place. So.
Well, I totally agree with you. However, we really don't know how a building's going to perform in real life until after it's occupied. And that's, to me, when the opportunity to change set points, to look at temperatures, to just look at how the heat pumps are functioning, how is the cycling going? Are we controlling them, you know, entirely properly? A lot of that is all BMS related, of course, but some of it becomes physical too. So I just wondered if you put enough in that to give us the kind of time after occupancy that our system may require.
Yeah, and again, I think I wouldn't want to compromise the money that we have within the construction side of things, because that's really where I think the bulk of the hours ought to be spent. And you know, knowing these things tend to be fee competitive, we are trying to limit the overall cost to the degree we can, but certainly you know, we could increase that you know, level of you know, emphasis during the occupancy period as well. So
okay, thank you, Dave. Good presentation.
Does anyone else have any questions? Woody asked all of my questions already, so. I think no other questions. I think thank you guys. Thanks Bill and Dave. Thanks for a very comprehensive presentation. And we'll be making a decision in a couple of weeks, and hopefully we get someone on board very quickly.
Great.
Well, thanks for the consideration.
Thank you. Take care.
Take care.
Take care.
Raquel, is anyone else on? We're taping it anyway, so it doesn't really matter if we if they leave. So
So the only one on is Jeff and then Craig with calling roll.
Okay. I guess I would maybe before we start, well, maybe move them over if they're not already moved over.
Oh, there she goes. She got him.
So Craig and Jeff, for subjecting yourselves to 2 hours that you're not going to ever get back in your life, I figured we'd at least give you credit for joining us, and maybe get your you know, your take on the what we just heard.
Sure. Craig, do you want to start or you want me to start?
Well, I've worked with all those commissioners in the past, so they all have their areas of expertise and a little bit more than others. I thought Van Zelm did their experience with fixing geothermal seems to be pretty appropriate. Not so much on the Horizon side, but I've done more work with BVH than any other ones in the past as far as commissioning is concerned. And they're doing a really good job on the envelope up at Mansfield that I could see. Van Zelm didn't touch on their envelope too much at all. It was mostly about the geothermal side and their design. So I didn't get a warm and fuzzy on how well they'd be on that side of the of that task. And even Horizon, I think they touched on it, but not as specific or seemed to have the tools that BVH had offered. That's just my 2 cents of what I saw.
Yeah, we have experience with BVH and Van Zelm, mostly from the design side, BVH a little bit with the commissioning. Neither one very much with building envelope commissioning, although I think, I agree with Craig, the summary of BVH's envelope commissioning was much more robust, at least during the presentation, than any of the other two. We haven't worked with Horizon, so I don't know how helpful that is or not, but
I think quite helpful from Craig and your perspective. Thank you.
sure.
So, yeah, that was helpful. Yeah, I guess they really, Van Zelm really didn't even touch on their envelope commissioning. Are we sure they have it in the number?
I did see it in the spreadsheet. There was a line item for it.
Okay, so do they have a sub-consultant, or how do they, I'm trying to think how they do that? Because they don't do that practice. They don't do that much commissioning, so I'm just wondering. Oh, Josh Klein, okay, they have a building envelope engineer. Yeah, Josh Klein, yeah. I guess he wasn't available, so. I guess maybe I'll start off with Woody. If you, what was your takeaway? And bear in mind, we're being taped, so.
I'm well aware. I wouldn't say anything I wouldn't say to anybody in person. Basically, I'm very comfortable with BVH, and I'm troubled by the fact that their number was higher by a fair amount. But if you look at it, the entire increase is basically in post-construction costs of measurement and verification and reporting and tuning. And so to me, that kind of explains that. I don't really have a feeling for whether we could negotiate that down. Maybe it's more than we need. I don't know. It's so much more than anybody else put in in terms of Van Zelm, it's $31,000 more than Van Zelm put in for the same function. And I don't know, I'd love Craig's input on this, but because you've tuned a lot more systems than I have, but the ones I've tuned all required occupancy for me to be able to get how people really use the building, how people like the building to be, to feel, what the humidity levels were when you design it and what they turn out to be in reality aren't the same. And then you get hit with a pandemic and your ventilation numbers change dramatically. And I spent over a year doing that, and the efficiency of the system is fabulous and operation is fabulous, but it wasn't at the beginning, and it was all done post occupancy. So I don't know. To me, I want the school to be efficient, but I sure as heck want it to be comfortable and enjoyed by everybody that occupies it. So that's why I would feel very comfortable with BVH. If we can't afford it, or if there's some reason not to go with them financially, Van Zelm made a very good presentation. I am concerned as well about the building envelope lack of speaking, but maybe Graham, you feel okay because they're going to bring somebody in. But it's I just don't know. So clearly I'm comfortable with BVH. My second would be Van Zelm. Thank you.
Good. No, that was helpful. Does anyone else want to?
I'm not hearing you.
Can you hear me? Maybe that's COVID coming
Is it
back.
me?
I can hear you, Graham.
Can you hear me okay? Okay.
I have
So-
a question for Adam. What was our budgeted number for commissioning? Did they all come in over? Were they around it? Where are we on that?
Yeah, so the budget as part of the original development was 90,000. So
Okay,
they're all
they're all
over.
over.
So, and the crux of that kind of comes down twofold. One is we did add in geothermal specific commissioning services. You know, that added, if you look at the numbers, around 4 or 5 grand, and that was pretty consistent among the 3 groups.
Mhm.
And the other part of it is just since the budget was originally developed, we've had a lot of escalation in things. So
Got
it's
it. Okay.
a
Have
shock.
we saved money anywhere else that could cover it?
There will be plenty of slide items on the budget. So we'll go through and we'll have this discussion over
Well, it's
and
just a
over and
question.
over again. So it's you know, on this line item, it will be a little over budget no matter who you select by definition. It's just a function of managing the other portions of the project to the scope that wants to be.
Balance it out. Okay. As far as the presentations go, I Horizon, whatever they were, is that what the name was in the middle? They didn't impress me at all, just in their presentation and how they spoke and what they spoke of. And they don't seem to be doing a lot in Connecticut. I'd like to keep it homegrown, if you will. But I agree that BVH was more comprehensive in their presentation, but Van Zandt did a good job, however you say their name, a very good job as well. So I'm kind of on board with Woody on what he thinks. So
Woody, you had asked Craig a question about that difference, and you never got a chance to answer.
Yes, thanks, Bob. I was just going to ask that. Craig, we're curious about what you think about post-occupancy, about the line items where literally people are into 3, 4, 5,000, and then their BVH was 34,000 because of the monthly data gathering and reporting that would go back to obviously the building automation people, us and you, for tuning and for making sure the system is behaving normally and properly and efficiently. So do you have any thoughts on that?
I circled that as well when I looked at the spreadsheet. And I went back and read the measurement and verification. It almost seems it's this 18th month process. 6 months after substantial completion, when the building's kind of kicked, to kind of let the building settle. And then the 12 months begins after that. So there's a long lag in it that could have caused them to look at it a little bit longer as well, the way I read this. But it is to really put the time in. I don't know. I think it is a little excessive for what is necessary to do, even for just the 12 months. If you're just looking at the values and kind of checking and looking at meters and just spot checking the BMS to see, you can put a day every month and do that pretty efficiently. That's my take on it. So I think it's definitely more than, you know, the 3 or the 5. The price to ME engines at 14 is more of a, I thought the number should be somewhere in that range. It gives you plenty of time to evaluate what you see. Look at the trends as well as the what the BMS is doing, and then make recommendations in the time. What we hope that they're not doing in the post is making too many wholesale changes and like retro commissioning if it's going to change the way the design intent went. So
Right.
That's what you have to be careful of as well. But they gave a lot of time, and their response to your question was they really want to get in there and really monitor and spend the time to assist if things need to be done. That's the way I took it. But I think it probably doesn't need to be as high as what it is.
Thanks. That's very helpful. I totally agree. But because it's an RFP, we have the ability to negotiate with them. And that it might be interesting if we can get that number to be somewhere more where you and I feel it should be, but still a hefty enough number so that we really get some bang for the buck out of it.
Sure. Adam?
Am I right, Adam?
Yes, so that's exactly what I was going to touch on is regardless of the firm, if there's a desire to maybe fine tune and confirm the services. On the flip side, if there's a number that seems a little low and you want to ensure what they're doing and bolster it, that can be resolved in negotiation or as part of an ad service or whatnot. So if just that little portion of it is the issue, that might be something that could be entertained in the contract negotiation phase, and you get the firm you want, whether that be Horizon, Van Zelm, or BVH, and then fine tune what the understandings are.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any other comments? George, you're usually good for a comment or two.
A quote. Like most other folks, I liked BVH and Van Zelm. I'll defer to Woody and his much more expertise than I in this field. So I would recommend we kind of throw BVH a number if everybody's agreeable, and try to get them down to a reasonable number to do the job.
How about the gentleman on the campus there? You guys have any? Bob and Bill, you got?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Woody. I like BVH, but I also like Van Zelm, and but the building envelope was missing, and so we talked to both of them. Woody, what did you feel about Van Zelm and their geothermal that part of the presentation?
I felt that even though I like Dave, clearly I liked him. He seems like a really good person. I was surprised that he has no certified geo designers, because geo designers are involved with much more than the bore field. They're involved with the integration of the whole system, heat pumps and all. So I'm a little surprised that anybody that's really into these systems, doesn't have a CGD or equivalent on staff. It's a complicated system, and it's important that it be done right. I have complete confidence, total confidence in Craig and his team, but I just think peer review and people that commission that know as much about or nearly as much about the system is very helpful. We just don't want to be faced with a system that has the issues that Van Zelm mentioned, because that could be so devastating for us. This system should come out of the box running. We may need to tune it, but come out of the box running properly, so that we know we've made the right decision.
Did BVH didn't give us an answer on how many they had, or if they had any?
Oh, they have a lot. I just don't know what the number is.
Okay. Yeah, they didn't give us a number. That's why I didn't know. Okay.
Bill, do you have any thoughts one way or the other? Have you experienced anyone in Madison? I think BVH has probably done some design work for you, right?
Oh yeah, no, BVH is a solid company. I've worked with them, very, very comfortable with them. I never worked with Van Zelm, but I thought they did a great presentation. I thought they talked a lot about the geothermal, which, I thought Woody was, going to make everybody excited about that. And I did review their proposal, and it looks like they got an envelope person that looks like they have a lot of experience in their presentation, packet. Not they didn't talk about it. So, and I'm a numbers guy. I mean, it's a big difference in dollar amount, so if they're competent and they're the team and they can do it, it's a lot of money that we need for other stuff. But I respect the committee, and if we think BVH is the better fit, all for them.
Okay. Any other comments? Any more input from the rest of the committee?
So I agree that BVH is probably going to be the most comprehensive engineering firm. I really like their presentation. I also did like Van Zelm. I thought they raised some issues. I'm concerned about the geothermal. I want to make sure that it really works well when we put it in. It's such a new technology. I think they made a good point about a a lot of people, contractors are not familiar with it. So we want to make sure that it's done right. I know we had success with it at the library, but this is a bigger operation we're putting together. If we can negotiate BVH down, I think that would be great. I think that is a big price difference, but I think we can probably get to it with the post-construction costs. Seems like where we can get it down a bit. So I guess my vote is BVH also.
Okay, so I guess the consensus is BVH if we can reach an agreement on a reduced number.
Yeah, I think one of the things we need to remember is Craig Nicola Ronan is designing our system.
Right, yeah.
Right, and these guys are checking that design, from what I understand.
And making sure that it's built to design.
To design.
Which becomes a very important thing. We don't expect Craig to be down there as much as the commissioning agent and his, Craig and his staff. So that's very important. And if we add money for Van Zelm to do the post-occupancy as thoroughly as we feel needs to be done, and BVH comes down, those numbers may not be that different.
Good point. Yeah, so clarification on the number. I thought it was a flat rate and they just sort of guessed how much they were going to use for each. They're not going to bill us at a T&M for each one of those functions, are they?
No. Those are lump sums with the way we set up the proposal for the commissioning agent is we identify, the line items, they provide the lump sum for each scope, and then they identify, for example, number of site visits and number of meetings. Each firm has a slightly different process, or maybe their meetings are more involved, lump in site visits together. So that's how we shake that out. But in terms of the number you see, that's the lump for the services. Obviously, if construction extended or we wanted them to do more, then it might be add service or whatnot. But none of this is T&M. The unit costs we had on there were for should additional meetings be necessary because we've got problems in the field or something of that nature that requires more of them. We have that basis to line up additional meetings or additional site visits without having to guess how much it's going to cost.
And I like the answer where they say they do most of the stuff during the peer review and the design, and they work it out during construction, that they hope, and their plan is not to have the problem, after they've moved in. And, if that's the case, and they do all the work up ahead and they have a peer review and they, I agree, Craig's going to make the best design ever in Connecticut for us, and they'll have a little input on the peer review, make it a little better. We're not going to have any problems, right?
Billy, I don't look at it as problems post-occupancy. I look at it as opportunity to tune the system for the highest efficiency based on the real load on the building, people that haven't been in it before and haven't commented before and lived in it before. So the systems need time to settle. And I think an 18-month period makes all the sense in the world. I'm still making changes at the library. They're small and they're incremental, but the efficiency has gone up every month since we got it running properly. So I have no doubt. I totally have no doubt about the design of the system. The question is, we have to make sure it's installed properly to design, and then we have to tune for the reality that nobody can figure out in advance. The people entering the building, and the sun and the angles and the leaves on the trees and all the things we try to take into account but can't fully take into account. That becomes getting the efficiency to where you really want it.
So we can go two ways. We can take a vote now. Can you hear me, Woody?
Yeah, I don't know whether it's my, I have a streamer so that I can put you in my ears. So I don't know if it misbehaves or what, but I'm now hearing you.
Okay, so I think we're probably maybe not ready to vote, well, tonight at the full amount. So I think the consensus is maybe we need to negotiate a little bit more, or I don't know, is that the consensus?
Oh, I totally agree. I thought with what Amanda said and what George said, I think if BVH can work on that fee, because we hope that there'll be no major issues that they have to deal with, and I'm sure there won't be any major issues, then it just becomes tuning and documentation. And so if their number comes down and we feel that number is acceptable, then we can move forward. Otherwise, we have Van Zelm.
I mean, I guess we can take a vote, recommended BVH on the, with a certain number. If we can come to terms with them for that amount of money, we can move forward rather than have another vote. Is that? I mean, if we split
Whatever
the,
you, whatever
yeah,
you think.
yeah. I'm open to if we said no more than X, is everyone agreeable to that approach, or do you want to just mull this over a little bit more, or, you know?
Well, I mean, I agree with Craig that the number I would have thought, just based on thinking the number of meetings, the number of times, that a number similar to M/E, you know, 14, 15,000. So if they took the 30, if they took, you know, 15,000 off, that would get us to that number. Right?
Yeah. So is everyone okay with that number? I mean, obviously at some point we're gonna
No,
need.
wait
to-
a second.
Yeah. No, it's 20,000. That would be 20,000.
20,000.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. That COVID really messed you up, Woody.
It sure did.
So for math
I'm still foggy.
So
Yeah.
for math purposes, taking off the 20,000 to get it down to 14,650 for that line item that Woody was talking about, that would make their fee 119. So just under 120.
And if
So-
we added money for Van Zelm, we'd be very similar. So I'm certainly comfortable with that, but I'm just the one vote.
So you want to make a motion to that effect, Woody, and we'll see where it goes?
What was the number, Adam?
120. Or 119, so 120, no more.
I'd like to
than
make a motion that we negotiate with BVH and enter into a contract with them if we can get the net total to 120,000.
So do we have a second? Or any discussion? Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, let's see, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. How about you, Bob? Did you, those opposed?
Bob said aye, you just didn't hear him.
Okay, I'm sorry, you got, okay,
Quiet.
okay, beautiful. Okay, that sounds like a plan. You okay with that, Bill? I know you don't vote, but.
No problem. It's great.
Okay. Yeah, and as Woody points out, we'll probably end up in the back end paying that much, a few doubloons more for Van Zelm on the back end, you know, if we have problems, you know, hopefully we don't, but I'm sure, you know, these things don't, they even said these things don't work out of the box perfectly. Okay. Excellent. So, Adam, do you want to convey that? You want me to call him? What do you want to do?
Adam's gonna handle it.
Perfect. Okay.
Adam, I think, were you planning to let them know why we're asking for this? Because I think that's important.
Yes. So for everyone's back pocket, the thought I had would be to not only ask about the money, because that's obviously part of it, but to indicate what that service entails and what would be the difference, if any, between, you know, their service and what the lower number service would be. And so, you know, maybe they're going out there for, you know, 2 days a month in the field and I don't know, doing something. And instead they truncate it and it's only, you know, 6 hours in the field and they come back and they look at it, do some quick calcs and write the report. So some explication as to what that's part of the service is, why it was so big in the first place, and then what the reduced fee and or service would be to better align the scope.
Yeah, and let them know that their number was so much more, but yet, we understood that they were doing a lot more. So I like to be completely transparent on these things.
Don't want to just ask for a discount and then get something bad in the back end without having an understanding of what that was, what that was based on. Maybe it's a good
Exactly.
friendly neighbor discount, but nothing's free.
Yeah, and they'll watch. I assume they'll watch the video of the meeting, so they'll know what we were talking about anyway. Hopefully. Okay, well, that's excellent. We got through that. Item number 4, public comments. I assume no one is left on the. No one survived.
No one's there.
No one's left. Okay, excellent. I didn't think we could. Anybody could make it through that one. Even Gus Horvath. You hear Gus moved out of town?
No.
Gus Horvath moved to Clinton. He's no longer a voter in Madison.
Wow.
Yeah.
The Board of Selectmen will sorely miss him.
Yes. I miss his dad flying. He's living with my best friend, though. Coincidentally, my best friend is married to his daughter, so they moved. So he moved in there into their house. So he'll be seeing me a lot. He'll be seeing him a lot more than the selectman will. God bless him.
That always works out well.
Yeah, exactly. Well, my friend's father lived with them for a year, and his daughter was a little irritated. It's payback. I shouldn't say this is on tape, but love them both.
We're ending.
Yes. If anybody makes it through this meeting, they'll love that comment. Okay. Number 5, remarks. Any other comments or remarks anyone wants to make? So that I'd anyone make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
I broke my record for quick meetings. Sorry, George. I'll get you next time. But it was important. We got through a lot.
We sure did.
It was worthwhile.
Yeah, I was going to say
Very.
thanks to everyone for bearing with this. This is very important.
Absolutely. So I call the meeting to end at 8:13.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Take
you.
care, all.
Good night.